I made a video a little ways back documenting an update on our 0.1 acre backyard garden a little earlier this summer. Throughout this video I'll link to, I made a video, I believe it was last year, that was kind of popular where we talked about this area in some detail. I'm going to link to that here. And then in a little while I'll link to the update from this summer. And a lot of the feedback that I got from folks was, I asked the question in that video, would people be interested in seeing more detail? I kind of glossed over what plants were in here, what have you, and there seemed to be a fair amount of interest in, yes, please give some more detail or go a little deeper in what the logic was or what the plant relationships are. So that's what this video is the first in doing that. And this whole garden is really complex, I think, in order to try to explain it. So I'm just going to focus on this one little area. It's a particularly wet nook. This is the northwest corner of the garden. And again, just for a quick frame of reference, we are on a north-facing slope. Very shallow to water. Very challenging in some ways. It's a fertile clayey soil, but incredibly wet here. And you can kind of get a sense, if I zoom out to the trees that surround this place, there are a lot of dead trees. And there could be different reasons for it, but a lot of times where I see lots and lots of trees that have died, it's because they've drowned at various times. You see this a lot in marshes in the middle of the woods. And so we're basically like an upland marsh in a way. And so this corner is kind of an interesting place because it is the wettest part of this very wet garden. And the design has evolved to accommodate or just make the most of what is being presented. So let's see. Try to think through the best way to offer up what's going on in here. You can see if I look southbound in this area, there's a bunch of cattails and nettles. That's where a hand-dug pond was done. The overflow for that goes along through here, goes down into, and I talk about this in another video, which is a hand-dug well in the garden. Really nice cold spring-fed water source that I can drop a solar-powered bilge pump into. And that's a source of irrigation. So it's basically focusing the water and allowing for better drainage with all these raised beds around it. But what I thought I'd really look at here is zoom in even closer. This one corner is where basically anytime it rains heavily, there's going to be water flowing through here. And so the trench has been hand dug in order to allow that water to flow. And into that trench has been planted watercress, which is a really appropriate plant for ideally areas of clean, continually flowing water, like a gentle stream, but intermittent flowing water is fine enough. And so slowly but surely this will fill out in here, and basically this drainage ditch will be a source of food for us and our chickens. And then this is an experiment, but so far seems to be promising. We've got rice growing. Ran out of time when I was planting this in the spring, so they're way too close. So I'm not sure if that'll have a huge impact, but they're making heads and we'll see. If this works this year, I'd be very happy to commit the entirety of this. So every time water is running through, it's going through rice. Also, this little trench, as water leaves, has had an elderberry planted next to it. This happens to be a dwarfing type called ranch. It only gets about 4 or 5 feet tall. And each time I go in and renovate the trench, because basically if we get a heavy rain, soil will move, mulch will move, and it'll pack up in there. And so I can shovel that material out and stool layer it onto this elderberry. And I talk about stool layering in another video. But basically this fall, when this plant goes dormant, it was just put in here last spring. I've already taken maybe 100 cuttings from it that have rooted, and when I dig this up in the fall, I'll get about 20 or 30 full-size elderberries. So from a nursery standpoint, this wet super challenging area is actually incredibly beneficial for my wet-loving propagation needs. Likewise, I've got a disease-resistant hybrid poplar. This is OP367, which adores being next to this wet area. These were cuttings that were that long this spring, and they are now taller than me. We've also got some black currants. So all of these things are appropriate plants. The rice, the watercress, the elder, the poplar, the currants, for a place that is periodically inundated with water. And so that works quite nicely. Then we've got these raised beds that need to get topped off with some more soil. Sasha put in, he's got these random seedlings. If anyone knows what these are, let us know. Some sort of ornamental corn, maybe. But what's nice is these raised beds give the plants a break from the flooding conditions. They need more soil, but these boxes also have cold frames that go over them, and so we'll top these all off, completely fill them with compost from the chicken yard. And a trick that I've been learning is to take seed from the plants that have bolted this fall, our radishes and mustards and kales and lettuces, and into these beds with polycarbonate cold frame caps on them. In the fall we can sow the seed, and the seed will sit over winter protected with the cover and germinate when it's ready. And we did that last fall with parsley, and boy oh boy did that work. This is all from fall sown parsley, so I'd like to really repeat that in each of these beds. Just clear them out this fall, fill them with compost, and just seed them in the fall so that in the spring the spinaches, the lettuces, the kales come up. Feels like a nice way to work with nature more. And so there's 3 beds here. Over time we may build more of them. And as a theme with this entire garden, really if we want to be able to grow anything, we have to go up. And so the walkways are shaved, the soil is put on, compost from the chicken yard is added layer by layer, and each year we try to build up and up and up. And having done that now, this is the 4th growing season. It's really starting to finally unlock. Here's a beet that hasn't gotten pulled yet. So there's enough soil here now that even when it rains heavily, the beds don't drown, and so we're able to actually get nice sized crops. And each year if we keep on with that, we should be able to get better and better crops. So incredibly wet, challenging site with enough thoughtful earthworks to focus the water clearly and into appropriate places, i.e. little ponds. See all the frogs jumping in there. And the zola floating in the bottom. So this is a real wetland context now. There's creeping jenny, moneywort, cattails, which could be a foodstuff, and designing for thoughtful overflows of all that. So here's ornamental sedge, I think, curly sedge, and kangkong, which is an edible aquatic vegetable from tropical Asian areas. So we're designing more and more for these things and taking a really overly wet site and making it both way wetter in some spots and way drier in others. And so that's one of the permaculture principles, is to have edge instead of one, the standard would be you dig, so this is the wet spot in the garden, let's dig a deep trench, put in perforated drainage pipe and get that water the hell out of here, right? Get the garden level, till it, rototill it every single season, but that just doesn't work. And so this has a lot more edge and dynamics. Maybe that does work for some people if you have access to big machines and unlimited gasoline, and you could care less what the landscape actually has. But if you're nestling into the landscape as it is, this is the way to go, I think. And it's been working really nicely. We've got, just on the outside here, there's some grain amaranth, Mexican sunflower, and then Sasha put in broom corn, which is topping out at about 10 to 12 feet. And that's all in zero till. This is actually one of the wettest spots, is just on the other side of the fence. But we've put at this point, maybe 20 or 30 wheelbarrow loads of compost out there. And so they're able, none of these things can get a deep taproot into the soil, but they're able to find everything they need. And just as reference, it's fine, everybody can do what they want to do, but our neighbor's garden, he goes out and he runs a gas tiller every couple of days, I think, to deal with the weeds, and their corn capped at about 6 feet. So zero till, only building up, seems to actually produce way better crops, who'd have figured. And it's nice because we can skip the gas and all that. Anyway, long-winded video here, but this is for those of you that wanted me to get a little deeper in, so there you have it. So we'll explore in other videos as time allows some different sections of the garden, but this was the theoretically wettest, most challenging, least potential space of the garden, growing beets, zucchinis, ornamental corns, loofah gourds, bitter gourds along the fence, elderberries, poplars, black currants, grapes, all sorts of stuff. And it's all by working with the patterns that nature shows and being patient that it's going to take a few years. The first 2 years sucked. So these aren't immediate results. There's nothing about this that's, oh, if you just do the right permaculture thing, you get immediately perfect results. Maybe someone gets that. I've only had the experience that it sucks for a few years and then it starts getting better. And in 20 years, it'd be really amazing to see what happens in here. Year 3, year 4, on a challenging site, this is what it looks like. Thanks for watching, and there's the laundry in the background. I should have taken that down before. Oh well.